Is it possible to beat a Nuzlocke challenge using only Pokemon that begin with the letter O? Well, today, O stands for Oh No, because there's only 10 O Pokemon in existence. Pokemon Shield offers me the most encounters, but I'll be adding in Hardcore Nuzlocke rules to make this extra challenging. We begin our journey by selecting a starter, but none of the 3 options or their evolutions begin with the letter O. Since it doesn't matter, I pick Sobble, and even though I can't use him in battle, I just know we're gonna be the best of friends. I have my first run-in with the Pog Fog Dog, and on Route 1, I can get my first legal encounter of the challenge, Blipbug, who evolves into Orbeetle. I name this little fella Off, and its sassy nature increases its best stat, Special Defense. Swarm is also my preferred ability here. We check in with Sonia, and then it's off to Route 2 for our second encounter. That would be Galarian Zigzagoon, who evolves into Obstagoon. I name this adorable little raccoon Obstacle. A mild nature that increases special attack isn't what I like to see, but the Gluttony ability on Zigzagoon will turn into Guts on Obstagoon, so that could be a huge advantage. Now we meet Professor Magnolia, the Galar region's Pokemon professor. You know, I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter about the hot new professors, and you know what? I agree. Off evolves into Dottler before we take on Hop for the first time. Off can take out the Wooloo, and I switch in Obstacle to take out the Scorbunny and the Rookidee. Thanks to the power of friendship and plot armor, Hop and I find 2 wishing stars that allow us to Dynamax our Pokemon. Swiftly, Hop and I venture to the wild area, where a few more of my encounters lie. The first Pokemon I find is Oddish. I name her Orchid, but because Oddish's evolved forms don't begin with the letter O, she will remain in Oddish for the entire run. I guess we'll find out how good Oddish really is. I mean, it does have a higher attack stat than Onix. What a terrible Pokemon. My next encounter is Onix, who I catch and name after its location in Sinnoh. Onix has a neutral nature and the ability Sturdy, which is situationally fine, but I prefer its other ability Rockhead. Meanwhile, Oddish has its ability Chlorophyll, but has one of the worst possible natures, increasing attack and lowering special attack. Adamant is terrible for Oddish, but I'm also adamant. That's right, I'm adamant that you subscribe to the channel. Hey, shut up, sound effect I put in here. Subscribing helps out my channel a ton. And while you scroll down to subscribe, leave a comment on this video too. Let me know which of these 10 Pokemon you hate the most. Yeah, we're not playing favorites this time. I wanna know which of these dummies makes your blood boil, your toes curl. Mine is Onix. There's one more Pokemon I can catch in the wild area, but I need to go fishing in order to find it. That Pokemon is Remoraid, who evolves into Octillery. I name him Odysseus, and he has a decent nature. Thankfully, Remoraid will not keep the Hustle ability through evolution, but it becomes the ability Suction Cups, which is not as good as the Sniper ability. In this game, we must take on the Gym Challenge, and our first stop on this path is Turffield. Here, I can take on Milo, the first gym leader, and his grass Pokemon. Milo has 2 Pokemon, and the first is Gossifleur. I send out Off, who's fast enough to set up an initial light screen, making Gossifleur's weak attacks even weaker. Strugglebug will be a 2-hit KO, and even physical moves barely make a dent. Off uses Strugglebug to take out Gossifleur. Milo Dynamaxes his second Pokemon, Eldegoss. I've allowed myself to Dynamax in this challenge too, as my limited number of encounters is restricting enough. I set up the light screen primarily to ensure that Max Strike doesn't do much damage, and the speed reduction doesn't change anything. Max Flutterby looks like a 3-hit KO, and Max Overgrow also does no damage. Light screen wears off for the final Dynamax turn, and I'm perfectly safe to stay in and finish the fight. That's an extremely easy first badge. Obstacle evolves into Galarian Linoone, and we make our way to Hulberry, where all the locals love their trunks. The gym leader here is Nessa, whose team of water Pokemon begins with Goldeen. I send out my grass type Oddish, who's slower than Goldeen and takes a fair amount of damage from Horn Attack. I spend the first turn setting up Growth, which increases my special attack by 1 stage. The damage from Goldeen is getting concerning, or at least it would be if Oddish didn't learn Giga Drain at level 20. This both takes out Goldeen and brings me back to full health. Nessa sends out Arrokuda next, and I just need to avoid flinches from Bite, which I do on the first turn, taking it out with Giga Drain. Finally, Nessa sends out and Dynamaxes her Dreadnought, and I Dynamax Oddish, who just looks like the least intimidating Dynamax Pokemon. I could have Dynamaxed earlier, but Max Overgrowth can't restore HP like Giga Drain does. And since I'm at full health, I can easily take the Max Darkness and retaliate with a fatal Max Overgrowth. That's 2 badges down. In the Galar Mines, I take down Bede with a healthy dose of Night Slashes, and evolve Odysseus into his adorable octopus form. We take down Marnie and her parasocial relationships, before heading to the Motostoke Gym, where we find Kabu and his Fire-type team. Kabu leads with Ninetales, and I lead with Odysseus. Ninetales is faster and goes for Will-O-Wisp, which is fine since Odysseus is a special attacker, taking out Ninetales with 1 Bubble Beam. Arcanine is out next, and it's funny how Kabu's team is built to counter physical attackers, when most water Pokemon are special attackers. Odysseus can't one-hit KO with Bubble Beam, so I Dynamax a bit early. This also gives me more HP to handle a Bite, and again, no flinching as I take out Arcanine with Max Geyser. Rain is now up as Kabu sends out his final Pokemon, Centiskorch. For the first time, we see a Pokemon Gigantamax, and Odysseus is even slower than Centiskorch. He can live any attack from the giant lizard, but Max Flutterby is actually a problem. That's because it lowers Odysseus's special attack, causing Max Geyser to not one-hit KO Centiskorch. I have a problem now, since if I stay in, I'm dead. Fortunately, I do have a Pokemon that could live any max attack, but unfortunately, it's Onix. Onix can take the Max Flutterby, but now it needs to outspeed here. I don't know Centiskorch's speed stat, but I do know that Onix probably barely outspeeds it. This takes out the Gigantamax Pokemon and gives us the 3rd badge. After the battle, Off makes it to his final evolution, Orbeetle, and so does Obstacle, evolving during the nighttime and becoming Obstagoon. The first 3 gyms are basically your training wheels, so when I make it to Stow-on-Side, I'm expecting the fight against the 4th gym leader Alistair to be much tougher. Alistair kicks things off with Yamask, and I send out Obstacle, whose normal type prevents it from being hit by ghost moves. Obstacle is also fast and has Stab super effective Night Slash, which easily takes out Yamask. Next out is Mimikyu, who's a bit tricky. I go for a move with a secondary effect to break Mimikyu's disguise, as it raises its attack with Hone Claws. I can't take it out with 1 Night Slash, but I'm safe even to a boosted Slash. Night Slash takes out Mimikyu on the next turn, and then Alistair sends out Cursola, who goes down to 1 Night Slash. Finally, Alistair sends out Gengar, so I Dynamax Obstacle, as Alistair Gigantamaxes Gengar. 1 Max Darkness takes out Gengar, and yeah, maybe the training wheels last a little longer than the first 3 gyms. Just to the east of Stow-on-Side in the Glimwood Tangle, I can find my 6th encounter, Oranguru. I now have enough badges to catch my ape buddy. I name her Uu-Aa. She has both a good nature and a good ability. With this addition, my team of O Pokemon is complete. We'll see if 6 Pokemon is enough, as we make it to Balanli. Here we find the Fairy-type leader, Opal. Opal begins with Galarian Weezing, and I send out Orchid. Orchid is equipped with the Eviolite, which gives a major boost to its defensive stats because it isn't fully evolved. The Eviolite is an awesome item for a challenge like this. Because of this, the damage from Sludge is minimized, and allows me to start setting up with Growth. This gym fight is interesting, since Opal will increase your attacks if you correctly answer her questions. I have no idea why we're doing this halfway through the gym challenge, but I'll certainly take it. It actually incentivizes you to take this fight really slow, so I let Weezing attack me as I set up Growths, and when my health gets too low, I just use Moonlight. Opal continues to boost me up, and eventually I find myself at +5 special attack, and heal myself up to be as healthy as I can. By lying to Opal one last time, she gives me the boost to +6 special attack, and now the mayhem of Oddish can begin. Orchid first takes out Galarian Weezing with a Venoshock, and next out is Togekiss. The speed boost from Opal is critical, allowing me to outspeed Togekiss and take it out with Venoshock. Third is Mawile, whose Steel type makes it immune to poison attacks, but at +6 special attack, the not very effective Giga Drain is still a one-hit KO. Finally, Opal Gigantamaxes her All Creamy, and my Dynamax Oddish can take it out with a Max Ooze. That's the power of Eviolite, and also free stat boosts, but don't worry about that part. For the first time, I have a bit of an issue against Hop. When Onix used Dig on a bridge, the infrastructure crumbled immediately, killing everyone. And that's how my journey ends. Actually though, Hop's Cinderace is pretty strong, surviving a Bubble Beam and making me have to risk a crit on Onix. We make it out, but it was actually a bit stressful. That bridge leads us to Sirchester, where we take on Melanie and her ice Pokemon. Melanie starts with Frostmoth, and I send out Odysseus. Octillery can learn a ton of moves, so I've taught him Flamethrower. Odysseus is also holding the Choice Scarf, which allows him to outspeed Frostmoth and kill with Flamethrower. Next out is Galarian Darmanitan, and that is an unwelcome surprise. I was hoping to set up a Reflect before it came out, because none of my Pokemon can 1v1 this thing. After shuffling around my plan, here's what I decide to do. I go ahead and Dynamax Odysseus now. Although I lose the effects of Choice Scarf, allowing Darmanitan to go before me, I can now take all of Darmanitan's moves and retaliate with a Max Flare that takes out Darmanitan. Melanie now sends out Ice Q, and Odysseus outspeeds to use the special Max Flare, circumventing the Ice Face ability on Ice Q and taking it out. Finally, we have to deal with Lapras, and Melanie begins her Dynamax turns as I end mine. G-Max Resonance doesn't do a ton of damage, but it does set up Aurora Veil, which causes Max Overgrowth to do an embarrassing amount of damage. Now, my Dynamax turns are over, and the snowball effect of using Dynamax early is reaching increasing speed. My plan now is to stall out Dynamax turns, dealing minimal damage, but also taking minimal damage. With Rain up, Max Geyser does more, but thankfully it doesn't crit, and now we have outlasted Lapras's Dynamax. But the fight is not over yet. I switch into Obstacle, who takes a rain-boosted Surf, and even with the grassy terrain heal, I can't stay in, right? Well, that's exactly what I'm doing. Obstacle knows the move Snarl, which lowers the target's special attack. This reduction allows me to stay in and take another Surf. With Lapras's special attack nerfed, I can safely switch into Off. Off outspeeds to set up a Light Screen, causing all of Lapras's moves to do basically no damage. I can now 1v1 Lapras with Psychic, eventually taking it out and getting the 6th gym badge. Before I head into Spikemuth, I need to take on Marnie, who generally isn't that hard. However, I had some comically bad RNG on this fight. Orberg was in battle to take out Morpeko, but Morpeko got flinches from Bite 1, 2, 3 times in a row. Later in the battle, as I attempted to take out Toxicroak with Psychic moves, Off got swaggered and hit itself in confusion before switching in Uuu-Ah-Ah, who also got swaggered and then hit itself in confusion twice in a row. I managed to escape this fight with no deaths, but that is some next level bad luck. In Spikemuth, I find Piers, who's doing what I would characterize as a really intense karaoke set. I mean, these guys are loving it, but I cannot imagine this sounds very cool. Piers takes a break to be a gym leader for a second, and takes me on in this 7th gym fight with no Dynamax allowed. Piers leads with Scrafty, and I lead with Orchid. Piers kicks things off with a Fake Out, and then starts going for sand attacks while I set up a Growth. Scrafty lowers my accuracy again, but I use Moonblast, which luckily connects, and takes out Scrafty in one hit. Next out is Malamar, who sees a kill on Orchid with Psycho Cut, giving me a completely free switch in to Obstacle. Obstacle uses Headbutt, which flinches Malamar on the first turn. Headbutt will be a 3-hit KO, and Malamar's attacks aren't effective against me. A third Headbutt takes it out. I think it's safe to say Obstagoon is my ace, but it's the same deal for Piers. I taught Obstacle Brick Break, but I need to be careful as the opposing Obstagoon knows Counter. Brick Break can't kill, so I start with a few Headbutts, knowing that I can survive the counter, although I may have played it a little too close. Obstacle is equipped with a Chesto Berry, so I can rest up and wake up, but of course, Piers doesn't use counter on this turn. It's finally looking like Brick Break range, so I go for it, but I miscalculated. Somehow, I'm not punished for this, and can take out Obstagoon on the next turn. Finally, we have to deal with Skuntank. So I switch into Orberg on a Sucker Punch turn. Orberg knows Earthquake now, which will be a 2-hit KO, and is perfectly safe to all of Skuntank's attacks. A second Earthquake closes out the fight, and this Rockstar turns out to be a 1-hit wonder. The gang is back together in Hammerlock to find out about the Darkest Day or something, but mostly to see me take on Raihan, the 8th and final gym leader. This fight is in double battle format. Raihan sends out Gigalith and Flygon, and I send out Odysseus and Orchid. Gigalith sets up Sand, which increases its special defense. Before the fight has even started, I go Octo mode, Dynamaxing Odysseus. My team is safe to whatever shenanigans Flygon does, and an attack drop is totally fine for both Pokemon. Odysseus retaliates with a Max Hailstorm, which not only kills Flygon with ×4 effectiveness, but changes the weather to hail. This removes the special defense buff from Gigalith, just in time for Orchid to throw down a Giga Drain. This can't kill, but it does great damage. Gigalith sets up Stealth Rock, which is perfectly fine. To replace Flygon, Raihan sends out Sandaconda. For this fight, Orchid knows Protect, because all Sandaconda wants to do is kill Orchid with Fire Fang. While Orchid is distracting it, Odysseus launches a Max Geyser, knocking out the Sandaconda. Its Sand Spit ability brings the sand back up, and unfortunately, Gigalith avoids the Protect by targeting Odysseus. It's my final turn of Dynamax, and Raihan sends out Duraludon. This dragon turns into a Skyscraper when it's Gigantamaxed. The Eviolite makes Orchid safe to max Rockfall. This puts Sand back up, but when Odysseus goes for Max Flare and does some damage to Duraludon, now the sun is up, removing Gigalith's special defense buff and allowing Orchid to take it out with one more Giga Drain. My Dynamax turns are over, but we only have one Pokemon left. I try to predict Duraludon's move by going for Protect on Orchid, but that was the wrong call. I probably should stop watching so much VGC. Flamethrower, of course, can't take out Duraludon, so now with Odysseus at critical health, I switch into Obstacle, who can take whatever Duraludon throws at me. I also spend the turn Moonlighting with Orchid to stall out Duraludon's final Gigantamax turn. Obstacle is also the choice because it's faster than Duraludon, knocking it out with a Brick Break. Raihan and his dragons are defeated. Wait, half his team isn't dragon type, what the fuck? We've now completed the gym challenge, which means we can take on the Champion Cup. Hop and I board a train to Windon, which is also what I say to my voice-activated fan. My first opponent is Marnie, who starts with Liepard as I start with Obstacle. Liepard skips the Fake Out and goes straight to attacking me with a weak Snarl and a weak secondary effect. Obstacle is holding a Choice Band, so Brick Break is strong enough to take out Liepard. Next out is Scrafty, who can outspeed and kill me with Brick Break. So I switch into Eviolite Orchid to eat that move. Scrafty moves first, but I'm safe to its moves, and bounce back with a Moonblast that takes out Scrafty. Third is Toxicroak, who I'm guessing will go for a Sucker Punch. I guess correctly, making the move fail as I heal myself with Moonlight. Orchid's health will be important later, but for now I switch into Aa, who immediately gets confused from Swagger. I have a Persim equipped, but another Swagger could be bad. Luckily, Marnie goes for Sucker Punch, which is perfect since I'm using Trick Room. This move makes the slower Pokemon move first for 5 turns, and Aa is the slower Pokemon. No Sucker Punch on this turn, and Aa takes out Toxicroak with 1 Psychic. Marnie now sends out more Pico, and I switch Orchid back in. From full health, Orchid is fine to a bite, and thanks to the Trick Room, I go first and take a lot of health with Giga Drain. Morpeko uses Torment, preventing me from using Giga Drain again. I can't get health back now, but at least I can still kill with Moonblast. Now the Trick Room is done, and Marnie sends out her final Pokemon, Grimmsnarl. As Marnie Gigantamaxes Grimmsnarl, and I Dynamax Orchid, I decide to employ a strategy I call the Max Guard Sandwich. Here's how this works. We both have 3 Dynamax turns, and Grimmsnarl is faster, so on the first turn I go for Max Guard, blocking Grimmsnarl's G-Max move. On the second turn, we have to fight, and Orchid takes a G-Max Snooze, and Grimmsnarl gets the 50% drowsy proc. I retaliate with a Max Ooze, which does over half. Then on the third turn, I use Max Guard again. This strategy allows me to only take one Dynamax move, and now that Grimmsnarl is normal again, I can switch in Obstacle on the bulk up, and with the Choice Band, take out Grimmsnarl with one headbutt. The first match of the Champion Cup is complete. We have one more fight in the semifinals, and that's against our old pal Hop. Hop begins with Dubwool, and I send out Obstacle. Wait a second. Obstacle is poisoned. Oh no, he said sarcastically. Obstacle has the ability Guts, which doubles your attack if you're inflicted with a status condition. Before this fight, I ventured over to the wild area and let a wild Oddish sprinkle its magic on me. Now I have a Guts boosted Obstagoon who's also holding a Choice Band. This insane amount of power allows me to take out Dubwool with one Brick Break. The AI will send out a Pokemon if it has a super effective move against you. This causes Hop to send out Snorlax next. My poor sweet baby Hop, when will you ever learn? Brick Break can also take out the Snorlax. And Hop sends out Pincurchin next. I don't need Obstacle for the rest of the fight, and he's safe to Pincurchin's moves, so I stay in. And even though I'm locked into Brick Break, it still does good damage. Even better, Pincurchin goes for Curse, and even with the defense buff, Brick Break is strong enough to take it out. Corviknight comes out after, and even though the poison damage is whittling down my health, I can stay in for another Brick Break, as I'd be safe to any of Corviknight's moves. Obstacle has done enough now, and I can switch into Aa, who handles the incoming Drill Peck. Safe to the Drill Peck a second time, I set up a Trick Room, allowing me to outspeed on the next turn and kill with Thunderbolt. Finally, Hop sends out his Ace of Cinder. Hop Dynamaxes the Rabbit as I switch into Orberg. Orberg is holding the Eviolite in this battle and is perfectly safe to all of Cinderace's moves. Now I can Dynamax Orberg and go for a Max Guard. Since our Dynamax turns are off from each other, this will be the only turn I can use Max Guard. So it's more of a Max Guard open face sandwich. Max Quake and Max Rockfall do the same amount of damage, but I go for Max Rockfall since it puts up sand. Max Knuckle is like being punched by a baby, and the sand does chip damage to Cinderace. That was Hop's final Dynamax turn, and since I have one left, I use a final Max Rockfall, taking out Cinderace and winning the fight. We have an interruption to the battles, and Pierce helps by making himself look just like a Zigzagoon. Wait, no, that's just how he normally looks. Now we have to climb up the real-life G-Max Duraludon. At the top we find Oleana, who seems like she's doing great. Her first Pokemon is Frostlass, and I send out Obstacle. I'm hoping Oleana will go for Will-O-Wisp to activate my Guts ability, but she goes for Double Team instead. Obstacle hits through and takes out Frostlass with a Choice Band boosted Night Slash. Next out is my Lotic, so I switch into Orchid, who is strong against all of its moves, and it's not even holding an Eviolite. My plan is to inflict my Lotic with Toxic Poison, because it loves to use recovery moves to stall out the battle. I can keep myself healthy with Giga Drain, and wait for my Lotic to slowly die of poison damage. Salazzle wants to use Incinerate, so I switch to Odysseus, taking a Venoshock and then knocking it out with Surf. Then we have to deal with Sarina, so I switch back to Obstacle, who falls in love with Sarina. Bro, put your tongue back in your mouth, you look down horrendous right now. Obstacle gets immobilized by Love, but is still strong enough to take out Sarina. Finally, Oleana sends out Garbodor as a representation of her personality. I switch in Orberg as she goes Garbo mode, and Onix survives the Max Quake. Now I can Dynamax for a Max Guard turn, and with the boosted HP, I can survive Max Quake and launch a Max Quake of my own. Now that the Gigantamax is done, I decide to risk a crit, which doesn't happen, to finish the fight with one more Max Quake. We've saved the world, and now we don't have to deal with any more plot stuff, right? Speed interrupts the remaining fights, because I guess you have to fight all the major characters in this game. Well, not all of them. I was really looking forward to wrecking Professor Magnolia. At Pokemon. Speed starts with Mawile, and I lead with Odysseus. My fashionable 8-legged friend is wearing the choice scarf, meaning it can outspeed Mawile and take it out with Flamethrower. Bede sends out Gardevoir next, so I switch into Uuu-A-A. Gardevoir can increase special attack and defense with Calm Mind. With boosted special attack, Dazzling Gleam does a bit of damage, but I'm starting a setup of my own, although just of special attack. Uuu-A-A is also holding the leftovers, as I'll need all the HP I have. Both Gardevoir and I go for setup moves again, and I'm starting to get afraid of the damage that Gardevoir will do. So as much as I'd love to use Nasty Plot for a third time, I need to execute my plan now. Uuu-A-A uses Trick Room, meaning she can launch her Shadow Ball first, but it doesn't kill Gardevoir. Gardevoir goes for an attack this time, and the healing from leftovers comes in absolutely clutch here. Uuu-A-A knocks her out with one more Shadow Ball. Now at +4 special attack, and with Trick Room up, Uuu-A-A can take out my little Galarian Rapidash. Bede's last Pokemon is Hatterene, and Uuu-A-A is actually faster than it, but Trick Room is still up for one more turn. So, when we both Dynamax, I use Max Guard, which runs out the final turn of Trick Room. Now Uuu-A-A outspeeds, and kills Hatterene with Max Phantasm. With Uuu-A-A getting to Dynamax this battle, all 6 of my team members have gotten their chance to shine as Dynamax Pokemon. My first match in the finals is taking on Nessa, who starts with her Golisopod. I send out Orchid, who's of course holding the Eviolite. Golisopod can do a lot of damage with First Impression, but since it's just Bug Fake Out, I can avoid it by using Protect. Golisopod sets up with Swords Dance, and I use a setup move as well. At +2, Liquidation does a decent chunk of damage, and I go for one more growth. I don't have to risk a crit because Golisopod goes for Swords Dance again, and even though Giga Drain can't kill it, it does over 50% damage, activating Golisopod's emergency exit ability, causing it to shift out of battle and losing the attack buff. Nessa sends out Pelipper, so I switch into Uuu-A-A, who has a similar strategy to last battle. I'm going for Nasty Plot buffs, but this time I have a secret weapon, Protect. Not only does Protect give me an extra turn of leftovers damage, it also runs out the other team's Tailwind quicker. So instead of attacking me, Pelipper spends an extra turn to set Tailwind back up. At +4 special attack, I go for the classic strat of Trick Room, but this time I use a Trick Room turn to Protect, and then take out Pelipper with Thunderbolt. Next out is Seaking, who Uuu-A-A can outspeed and kill with Thunderbolt, and then Nessa sends Golisopod back out. I go for Protect, and even though Nessa heals Golisopod, this is totally fine, because my whole plan was to run out Trick Room turns, since Uuu-A-A is faster and kills with Thunderbolt. I was hoping Barraskewda would come out before Golisopod, but it's okay because I can take all of its attacks, set Trick Room back up, Protect for the millionth time, and Dynamax a bit early, because I can guarantee a kill with Max Lightning. Finally, Nessa sends out her Dreadnought, and we get to see it in its Gigantamax form for about 3 seconds, because Uuu-A-A outspeeds and takes it out with Max Lightning. Just a few fights to go. I have to take on Alistair next, but I have a great type matchup here. Once again, I send out the Guts-boosted, Choice-banded Obstacle, who uses Night Slash to outspeed and one-hit KO Dusknoir, Chandelure, and Poltegeist, before Dynamaxing to take out Cursola and Gigantamax Gengar with Max Darkness. Maybe the easiest fight in the entire game. The theme of Raihan's final team is just weather, so he starts with a Torkoal that sets up the sun. I've led with Odysseus, who now knows the move Rain Dance. With the rain up instead of the sun, Solar Beam is a 2-turn move instead of a 1-turn move. Now I take no damage and take out Torkoal with Surf. Next out is Goodra, so I switch into Eviolite Orchid, who takes the thunder like a champ. Orchid needs a special attack setup here, and thankfully it can handle Goodra's moves. However, Goodra always puts the rain up, which makes Moonlight heal only 25% instead of 50%. So by the time I run out of Moonlights, I'm only at +4, which isn't quite where I want to be. This is evidenced as Moonblast doesn't quite kill Goodra. Raihan heals up, and I go for Moonblast again. But this time, I do hit the range and take out Goodra. Third, we see Turtonator, so I switch back to Odysseus, as Turtonator puts up the sun. So when Turtonator goes for Shell Trap, I just put the rain back up and then take it out with one surf. Fourth is Flygon, who puts up a pretty useless Sandstorm, which allows me to take it out with one Ice Beam. And finally, we see Duraludon. We both get big, and G-Max depletion does about half to me. I retaliate with Max Flare, but don't quite get to 50%. As long as the sun stays up, I'll be able to hit the range. But Duraludon uses Max Rockfall, which changes the weather back to sand. But the first Max Flare roll must have been a low roll, because the second one hits the range and takes out Duraludon. The team of O's has weathered the storm. Before I can take on Leon as champion, we get an interruption. It turns out that Chairman Rose, and spoiler alert on this game that came out 4 years ago, is the bad guy. Whoa! I go to the Slumbering Weld to mourn my dad, but I don't have time for that. Get back to the task at hand. Hop and I are greeted by the Nintendogs, but for now, it's up to me to take down Chairman Rose. All of Rose's Pokemon have a weakness to fire moves. So I send out Odysseus. He's holding the Choice Scarf, so he can outspeed and one-hit KO the Escavalier and the Ferrothorn. Even with the Choice Scarf, I can't outspeed Klinklang though. So I Dynamax now, to make sure I have enough HP to always survive the hit. Max Flare kills Klinklang, and then I outspeed and kill the Berserker. Rose Gigantamaxes his Copperajah, and Max Flare leaves Copperajah with a Sliver. I'm always safe to its moves though, and even though my Dynamax is done, there's so little health that a regular Flamethrower does the job. The team then defeats Eternatus, and the world goes back to normal. Finally, we have one fight left, against Leon, to determine the champion. Leon kicks things off with Aegislash, and I send out Obstacle, who is guts boosted and ready to go. Aegislash decides to not bother with King Shield, allowing Obstacle to take it out with Night Slash before it can change stances. Since this is the last battle of the game, I plan to play extremely aggressively, so when Rhyperior comes out, I switch into U'u'a'a, who I know won't be used in this fight. U'u'a'a's beautiful sacrifice allows me to get a clean switch in to Orchid. She is not holding the Eviolite here, and that's because she's holding a Focus Sash, letting her live on 1 HP and firing back with a Giga Drain that easily takes out Rhyperior. Leon sends out Dragapult next, and I plan to sacrifice Orchid here, but she actually lives the Flamethrower from Dragapult, so I can take a ton of damage with Moonblast. It still makes sense to sack here. I switch in Obstacle, who takes a Thunderbolt from Dragapult and KOs with Night Slash. Haxorus is fourth, and its Mold Breaker ability ignores the boost from Guts, causing Obstacle to not kill. I'm totally fine with Obstacle dying, but he really wants to live one more turn. He takes out Haxorus as he succumbs to the burn. Leon has 2 Pokemon left, but he'll always send out his Charizard last. So I can send in Off, as I know Leon will send in Rillaboom. Off outspeeds, and Oko's Rillaboom with Bug Buzz. Only the Charizard remains, and I sacrifice Off to the Charizard. I'm just trying to stall out Dynamax turns, as I send out Orberg next. Orberg's Sturdy actually prevents it from dying, but it misses the Rock Slide, and then succumbs to the harsh sunlight. When I send out Odysseus, Charizard has 1 Dynamax turn left, so I Dynamax, and go for a Max Guard that wastes the final turn and sends Charizard back to regular form. Because of the Max Overgrowth, Sun isn't up and Solar Beam isn't a 1-turn hit, so Odysseus can use Max Geyser, which 1-hit KOs the Charizard. And just like that, I've defeated a Hardcore Nuzlocke, using only Pokemon that begin with the letter O. If you enjoyed this video, check out some of my other content on screen now. It would also be amazing if you subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much for watching.